Hello everyone, today I want to talk to you about how the dam break disasters of barrier lakes in Taiwan are man-made disasters, not natural ones. In addition, the G77 major industrial nations want to impose tariffs on some of China's rare earths, but major Western opponents say China has the technology and expertise, and the West cannot replace the United States. The West is stuck with China's rare earths and is looking for a way out everywhere, but everywhere is a dead end. Reuters quoted 4 sources on September 25th as saying that the G7 and the EU are considering setting a floor for rare earth prices and want to impose tariffs on some of China's rare earth exports. Rare earths are difficult to mine metals that are crucial to the manufacturing of products such as mobile phones, cars, and high-tech weapons. China is the world's leading rare earth producer. In April this year, China retaliated against the United States for increasing tariffs on rare earth metals, export controls. Except for Japan, the other 6 G7 countries are highly dependent on China for a variety of materials, from rare earth magnets to electromagnetic metals. To address this risk, G7 leaders launched the Key Anti-Industrial Action Plan. A technical team held a meeting in Chicago earlier this month. A source said of the meeting that the meeting focused on whether to raise the regulatory threshold for domestic key material companies to invest abroad to discourage companies from investing in China. However, there is still uncertainty about whether to take such countermeasures against China. Australia, which is not known to the public, also attended the meeting. Sources said other options are available. Another option is to implement geographic restrictions on investments in certain regions, but there are still disagreements among the G7 countries. Restrictive measures may include localized procurement requirements, such as limiting the purchase of rare earth products from specific countries like China in public tenders. Additionally, sources said the G7 also discussed imposing carbon taxes or tariffs on rare earths and small batch metals exported from China, with the tax rates depending on the proportion of renewable energy used in the production process. Officials are considering a price floor backed by the entire company that would cap rare earth prices to prevent Chinese imports from undercutting the market. The United States has recently implemented similar measures to boost domestic production, and Australia is also considering establishing a price floor to support rare earth investment. A fourth source, an unnamed EU official, said the EU is exploring various options, including price floors, joint procurement, and reciprocal spending agreements, but no decisions have been made. A brief summary is in order. First, if the G7 and the EU impose tariffs specifically on Chinese raw materials, China could retaliate, such as by imposing tariffs on these countries' southern and northern rice and agricultural products. Can these countries afford it? A bigger question is whether the G7 can do anything, but can they themselves implement tariffs within 5 years? Build a year-round production line to replace all Chinese rare earth products within 10 years? If there are no alternative products, there is no way to avoid Chinese products. It just makes domestic users pay more. Thunder can't support local rare earth companies. These closed-door housing officials should listen to what the companies say. On September 24th, a rare earth industry conference was held in Toronto, Canada. At the conference, MP Materials, Bosting Power, BMW, and other rare earth-related industry leaders explained that the core topic of the conference was originally centered around how to build a supply chain that is different from China, but the conclusion seems to be that China's supply chain cannot be avoided. Suleiman, CEO of Lihao Materials, said straight to the point that he dared not communicate about the theme of the meeting. This rare earth company with a large headquarters is a major manufacturer of key materials in the West. Suleiman is more in favor of relying on technical expertise. China will continue to play a key role in the global rare earth product supply chain, and its competitive advantages will help it gain market share, Suleiman said during the visit. Frankly, China will and should continue to be the dominant force in this field. When an industry seeks to manage market share and local concentration risks, I think this is the right approach to change the direction of the industry. But frankly, when the industry starts talking about getting rid of its dependence on China, I think it will face considerable challenges. The complexity of the natural gas and rare earth supply chain lies in its 3 major links: mining, refining, and magnet manufacturing. The European Policy Research Centre pointed out that the CCP controls 91% of the world's natural gas and rare earth refining, 87% of oxide separation, and 94% of magnet production. For Neo Materials, which has been deeply involved in China's business for many years, few companies can compare. It has felt China's dominance in the rare earth industry more directly. In an earlier interview with the New York Times, Neo Materials CEO Suleiman admitted that it took Neo Materials' Chinese refineries 7 years to master the 100 chemical processes for producing ultra-pure distillates, while American companies had to start from scratch as soon as they learned them. Suleiman further said that China has a strong control over the rare earth field, its rare earth products are cheaper, and its ability to meet customers' special needs is also very strong. It is not easy to quickly or easily replace China. Manufacturers of rare earths or magnets in their products must strike a balance between cost and geopolitical supply risks. In other words, if you don't want Chinese products, the cost will be staggering. He said that China is still the most cost-effective region in the world, and customers will definitely focus on how to find the right one. The balance point is to localize some materials, while most procurement still needs to rely on existing channels, that is, to buy Chinese goods. Bird Materials business covers chemicals and metals, and it also has operations in other parts of Asia, Europe, and North America. It has 10 production plants worldwide to produce various key materials. Bird Company recently invested $75 million to build Europe's first magnet factory in Estonia, which has officially started production. The factory's initial production capacity is expected to meet the demand for magnet components for up to 1 million vehicles annually. The Estonia factory mainly produces aluminum magnets, which are one of the products on China's export control list. In April of this year, China implemented export controls on key minerals, and Western companies immediately cried out in grief. The United States and the West are simultaneously hyping up China's so-called weaponization of gas and earth. Yuk Yifu, an analyst at Canadian investment management company Palladium Capital, reported in August that, apart from Neo Materials, Spain currently has no other magnet production capacity for electric vehicle traction motors. In June of this year, at the G7 summit held in Canada, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen held up a magnet produced by Neo Materials at its factory in Estonia. She highlighted that this magnet was manufactured in Estonia by a Canadian company using raw materials sourced from Australia and would ultimately be used in electric vehicles and wind turbines in Germany and France. Von der Leyen's boast reached a fever pitch. It can be summarized this way. First, von der Leyen pinned her hopes on the rare earth pools produced by Neo Materials. Second, Neo Materials CEO poured cold water on everyone, telling them to stop dreaming. He said he had spent 7 years at a Chinese refinery learning 100 chemical processes for producing ultra-pure rare earths, but that was just one type. He estimated that most future rare earth purchases would still be from China. What investigators and experts say are two different worlds. What do you want to talk about? The Yansai Lake Dam collapse in Hualien, Taiwan was ostensibly a natural disaster, but in reality a man-made disaster. Typhoon Super Gaza swept through. Taiwan suffered the worst damage in Asia, with 15 deaths, primarily in Jiangfu Township, Hualien. A local Yansai lake collapsed under strong winds and heavy rain. At daybreak, the lake water flooded into Jiangfu Township, trapping many residents in their homes. In the end, many were killed. Matayan. Yansai Lake originated in April last year. On July 3rd, Taiwan was hit by a major earthquake. At that time, there was a collapse of earth and rocks in a place called Songdong in Hualien. In July of this year, Hualien and other areas were affected by the outer circulation of Typhoon Waipai, which brought astonishing rainstorms. A large pit appeared on the upper reaches of the Mataiwan River without collapse. Since July 21st, a 200-meter-high covered dam has been formed to intercept the water flow. In this way, a supergiant depression has been formed above the mountain, which has accumulated so much rainwater as a pond. When the water level is full, it is 91 million cubic meters. Its hugeness can be imagined. Naturally, a natural disaster of this scale is not for the Hualien government to deal with. The Agricultural Department of the Executive Yuan of Taiwan held several meetings after the banquet room meeting and jointly discussed with several departments, including building a dam top to reduce the sliding, blasting the dam body, and pumping water. Various flood discharge plans. They felt that this plan was not suitable and that plan was not appropriate. As a result, Typhoon Huagaza brought a lot of rainwater into the blockade lake, diluting the lake water. The two floods rushed down, comparable to a tsunami, and rushed into Jiangfu Township, causing the city to suffer disasters. In fact, there are cases of managing blockade lakes in mainland China. In May 2008, a strong earthquake struck Minken, Sichuan, and 257 blockade lakes were formed in the region. The largest of them, Tangjiashan Blockade Lake, has a water storage capacity of 250 million cubic meters and flows into the downstream cities such as Yangyang, Gangyu, etc. The safety of people in so many times was ensured by the use of 80 production vehicles and excavators using a Mi-26 heavy transport boom. Mud trucks and other construction machinery entered the disaster area. Zhang Yonggen and the engineering team mainly used heavy machinery to dredge the dammed lake. Small-scale blasting was used to remove hard rocks to ensure that the depth and width of the dredging channel met the drainage requirements. Finally, a 10-meter deep, 7-meter wide, and several hundred-meter long artificial flood discharge channel was opened in the Tangye Mountain dammed lake. On June 10th, the lake water was successfully diverted to an orderly discharge, eliminating the crisis downstream. All households in Taiwan's Matai have been lost, which is quite difficult to manage because of its remote location and lack of road access. However, the dammed lake was formed in July, and it is not far from the current situation. There were 2 months available, so if decisions had been made quickly, such as Taiwan borrowing heavy-lift helicopters from mainland China or other countries, it would have been possible to rapidly transport dump trucks and excavators to the dammed lake. In 2008, after the Tangjiashan dammed lake was formed by the earthquake in mainland China, they successfully discharged the water. It took only 29 days to release the floodwaters from the Tangjiashan dammed lake, which had a water storage capacity as high as 250 million cubic meters. Back in Matai Bay, homes have been lost, and the water storage capacity is 91 million people. Taiwan spent 2 months and 3 days trying to resolve the Yangtze Lake issue, but it's far larger. If a more effective solution isn't available, Taiwan should resort to the old-fashioned method of sending 189,000 active-duty soldiers with shovels to manually plow through the floodway. Is this a man-made disaster or something else? Hualien is run by the Kuomintang, and even if the Democratic Progressive Party isn't intentionally suppressing it, it wouldn't have paid much attention to the disaster at Matai Yangtze Lake in Hualien. The executive yuan allowed departments to drag their feet, ultimately leading to a devastating disaster. Political infighting resulted in the unnecessary deaths of residents in Jianghu Township. Taiwanese people are arguing about how advanced their own system is. The results of their policies will reveal their true colors. Furthermore, in a commentary on the Petroleum Channel, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan established a military alliance. Analysis indicates that Middle Eastern concerns about US security commitments are growing. Subscribers are welcome to listen to our commentary on the Petroleum Channel.